Hey everyone, so this will be the last part in our video series, Biblical Eons, where here I want to come back to the Old Testament and I want to talk about the law of the eon. Exodus chapter 30, verse 21, which the King James translation is translated, shall be a statute forever. However, the law of the eon here in Exodus chapter 30, verse 21, goes back to Exodus 19:5, according to a covenant, okay, which this is the first mention of the word covenant with Moses. This is part of the Eonian covenant given to Israel according to the priest's office. So here in Numbers 25:13, we see the phrase, a covenant of the priest's office of the eon. But this is not an everlasting forever covenant. This is how they've translated the word olam here, a covenant of an everlasting priesthood. But it was only everlasting until Christ appeared. In Hebrews chapter 7, verse 28, we find this phrase, after the law. After the law. So we read, for the law, the covenant that we just previously considered, down established human as archpriests, having weaknesses, but the word of the oath, which came after the law, down established the Son, having been accomplished into the eon. So the so-called statute forever, better translated law of the eon, has or had an after the law of the eon. The priest's office of the eon had an after this. So after the priest office of the eon, according to human as archpriests, came Christ. After the law of the eon, which Christ fulfilled. And then it down established the Son, him, as having been accomplished into the eon from the time of Christ's fulfilling the law to the completion of the rest of the heavens and earth. So this is how we have to understand Eonian. What Jesus is saying in Matthew 5:17 here, that he came to fulfill the law completely, is the after the law here of Hebrews 7:28. So he has been accomplished into the eon now, which we find this phrase into the eon, which is the equivalent of the Old Testament for Eonian. So we also see this in Hebrews 7:24. But this one, because of his abiding into the eon, he has the priesthood untransgressing, which the priest's office established through Moses is not. So the priest office of the Old Testament is of the eon was until this point, till Christ. Hebrews 7:17, for it is testified, you are priests into the eon, according to the order of Melchizedek, which is the oath. The word of the oath here, hence Psalms 110:4, Yahweh has sworn and he will not be changed in his mind. You are a priest for Eonian, on account of the matter of concerning Melchizedek. So again, the priest office does come to be for them for a statute of the eon was only until Christ completed the law of the eon. So again, back to Hebrews, wherefore Jesus came as a forerunner for us, having become our priest into the eon according to the order of Melchizedek, Hebrews 5:6. So as he also in an ulterior word said, you are priest into the eon, according to the order of Melchizedek, where in Hebrews 1:8, we have the priesthood as the angels back here. So we're priests into the eon with Christ to judge in the testifying time. Again, Hebrews 45:7, which I've talked about already in previous videos. So we are priests. We, as stones, each member of the body is a stone being dwell built into that non-handmade temple, be dwell built as a dwelling site of the Spirit into a holy priesthood, as a dwelling bringing up well-receivable sacrifices to God through Jesus Christ. But you are an out-chosen becoming line, a reigning priesthood, a holy nation, a people into a surround, that you out-announce the virtues, etc., which all accords to the heavenly on calling. The heavenly on regency, which I talked about already, right here in part 7, video 132. So there's the after the law now. After the law, referring to the law of Moses and the priesthood, which we who are in Christ Jesus are now according to the law of the Spirit. Romans 8:2. And how much more will the blood of Christ, who through the Eonian Spirit offer himself undefiled to God, cleanse your conscience from dyed works to worship the living God. The dyed works that were in the law of Moses. The law of the eon, which the bathing of their hands and their feet here was just the cleanness of the flesh. It was not able to accomplish into the eon, which Christ now accomplished in his blood. So understand, you Torah keepers, this so-called ordinance forever, Exodus 12:14, was a statute of the eon, not the entirety of the eon, though, because Christ became the accomplisher of these statutes from his blood to the finishing of the rest of the eon. So it's statute of the eon, statute of the eon, statute of the eon. Okay? You can't come back to this and be accomplished. Because the law of the eon, as the statute of the eon, down established human as our priests having weaknesses, but the word of the oath, according to the order of Melchizedek, which came after the law, down established the Son, Jesus Christ, having been accomplished into the eon. Okay, from this point of his fulfilling completely, Matthew 5:17, to the conclusion of this eon. For Christ is the finishing of the law of the eon for righteousness to every faithing one. But now without law, the law of the eon, the righteousness of God has been revealed, which now came after, being testified by the law and the prophets. Hence, do we make down on working the law in Christ? No. The law of Christ, the law of faithing? No. We establish the law in Christ, just as Christ fulfilled the law. In fact, according to the mystery, Ephesians 1:9, we are guardians of the dwelling law, not the law of Moses, but the law of the Spirit in Christ. A priesthood. Think about it.